Was Pirates SMP a good SMP? That is the question we'll be figuring out today. Because if you enjoy Minecraft SMPs or you're subscribed to my channel, you might know of Pow Creations and what Pirates SMP was. If not, let me give you an introduction into the world of pirates. The Ecclesia Sea, an ocean that spans across crashing waves and frequent islands. Some have been populated, thriving on open trade and governed freedom, while other islands unoccupied by human hands, with all forms of ferocious beasts and terrors, relics of ancient structures, and of course, treasure, all of it waiting to be discovered. A true pirate's life. However, this story begins a little smaller. At the center of the Ecclesia Sea is the island known as the Faction Isles, an island occupied and watched over by 4 pirate factions over multiple generations. Kites, known for their combat and glory. Kestrels, known for their creed and wealth. Herons, known for their research and discovery. And lastly, nightingales, known for their kindness and adventurous behavior. These 4 factions make up the island, and for most that live here, they live as they did before. They follow the minimal laws, worship certain gods if they choose to, and listen to their faction leaders. But on this particular day, a handful of misfits, vagabonds, and triggered happy mercenaries all gather to the Faction Isles for what is known as the Recruitment Day. They'll be selected and sorted to be part of one of the 4 factions. Yet unknown to our fellow pirates, there's a much darker secret beneath the waves, as their destinies slowly begin to intersect. Now, if that story interests you, you should definitely check out Pirates SMP. But is an entertaining story all you need to make an SMP good? Well, let's go over what Pirates SMP did right, and what they could have improved on to really find out if Pirates SMP was a good SMP. Of course, the story. The story for Pirates SMP is one of the most interesting and entertaining stories I have ever watched for any Minecraft SMP. The amount of details and subtle hints that are given throughout the whole story to allow you to slowly piece together the answers was amazing. And after you got done with the finale, you can go back and rewatch the entire series and fully see how everything was connected and it all made sense. Seriously, this story had me fully hooked and invested, where I even made a full theory board piecing together the main plot points. Now, besides the story, we need to talk about the NPCs. I've said it before and I'll say it again, Pow Creations is going to revolutionize SMPs. For them to have the idea to implement AI into the NPCs that allowed the players to have full conversations with these non-player characters, it made the Faction Isles feel more lively. And if they keep pushing the limits for stuff like this, and continue to think of creative ways to improve an SMP, who knows what will happen to other SMPs in the future when they see what Pow Creations is doing. And not just NPCs, they also implemented a full automated quest system, which allowed the players to choose and do daily tasks from a quest board when they felt like it. So when they were online, it gave the cast something to do while they were streaming. Along with that coding for NPCs and an automated quest system, Pirates SMP also had customizable and upgradable boats that allowed the players to sail across the sea faster, fire cannons, and customize their ship to fit their character's personality. Coding like this, and all the behind-the-scenes work that lays down the foundation for this type of series, shouldn't go unnoticed, and it's incredible what Pow Creations and No Name Ideas can create. Speaking of No Name Ideas, another thing that the Pirates SMP got right was the world building. This series takes place on a massive scale of a map. Each island is custom made, with custom structures and landmarks that span across the entire ocean. And as you can tell, these are not small builds, so it's incredible what No Name Ideas can do. And lastly, I can't skip over the cast. Again, like Rats SMP, Pow Creations did a fantastic job on showcasing and selecting the cast for this series. This entire cast selection is full of amazing and talented creators, following the same way they did as Rats SMP, presenting each character on a poster, continuing that connection between multiple forms of media into a Minecraft SMP. Each cast member brought so much variety into their character, as well as creating great dynamics between the creators. And even though there were a lot of creators and POVs, you as a viewer didn't have to watch every single one to understand the main story. Because Pow Creations thought of this and they formed the story in a way to where you just needed to watch the one main story event that happened once each month to understand the main plot points of the story. And that could be done from any cast member's POV, since they were all involved when the main story events happened. So there you have it. All the things Pow Creations did right with Pirates SMP. An amazing story that had incredible world building with unique custom mechanics and an amazing cast selection. What more do you need for an SMP? Well, like I said at the beginning of this video, there is something Pirates SMP could have improved on. And in my opinion, it takes priority over everything else I mentioned for an SMP. That would be player interaction. Now, some of you might be confused and asking, Abolish, there was player interaction. And you're correct, there was. Well, let me ask you a question. How many total cast members were there in Pirates? I'll give you a few seconds. You got your answer? 30. There were 30 total cast members, but it didn't feel like that. Unless it was for a main story event or character lore, there was a low amount of player interaction, especially when you compare it to their previous SMP, Rats SMP. When there was, it was great, but that didn't happen as often as it should have. And the reason for that? The map was just too big. When you try to put to scale an entire sea into Minecraft with huge custom islands and structures, at a certain point it becomes too big. Even the faction isles was too big for player interaction to some degree. Having all the NPCs on the island made it feel more lively, but that's not the same as the feel of players. Story and narrative wise, it makes sense, but for an SMP, it makes it more difficult. Because like I said, there was a total of 30 cast members. But each cast member has to be put into a faction. So 30 divided by 4, you roughly get 7 pirates per faction, give or take. Now those pirates will mainly interact and see the members of the faction they're in. On occasion, they would see the other pirates from different factions, but that would only happen if they're near the quest board or just passing by each other on the main island. So now you have 7 pirates in one faction, which isn't too bad. But what also happened is they would split to even smaller groups or go solo depending on the quests they were doing that stream. This also doesn't take into account IRL events, the times they stream at, or even like every SMP series, as it goes on, less people will just hop onto the server to play, so certain factions will generally just have less faction members later in the series. Another issue with the map being so big was the ships. Yes, the upgrades made them faster, but when the ships were showcased, there was this mention of ship warfare between the pirates. The faction isles was the safe zone, no fighting on the faction, but out in the open sea, it was fair game to fight other pirates and steal their treasure. But that only happened a handful of times since the map was so big, no one accidentally ran into each other. And as someone who watched a lot of the live streams, at certain times it felt more like a custom solo series than an SMP. You compare Pirates SMP to the previous series Rats SMP, you can feel and see the difference in player interaction. Now, I want to preference that Rats SMP and Pirates SMP are 2 entirely different series, with different genres and different styles on how they were designed. But when you compare the 2, you can see that Pirates SMP, being Pow Creations' second SMP series, has had monumental improvements to Rats SMP. A more in-depth story, a fully automated quest system, improved NPCs, and so on and so forth. But Rats, in every way, does a better job of player interaction. And that's for 2 reasons. 1, how big the map was, and 2, where everyone lived in the SMP. The scaling of the map for Rats SMP was at a size that allowed players to roam around and it felt big. But it was small enough to where each stream, there were multiple interactions between different players. And the second reason, the main area where the rats lived, the attic, had a huge aspect to player interaction. Because everyone lived close enough to each other, this allowed interaction to happen more often and it felt natural. As well, with the use of the Chiseled and Bits mod, the players could build their homes in other structures. So what would happen is, if a player didn't see anyone online, they would come across a new build in the attic, or see that some made improvements or added more to their house, giving this feel that others lived there. Pirates didn't really do this. Most of the players' bases were part of structures that were already built, or if they did build their own base, it wasn't seen that often because again, the faction isles was too big to view constant build progress. Pirates SMP was an amazing series. I was fully drawn to it and I enjoyed so much of it. If I didn't, I would have made a full-out theory board about it. Yet with everything it did right, it lacks the one thing that makes an SMP feel like an SMP. It's like the joke when being on a friend's Minecraft server. You all build around 0-0, but you have that one friend that decides to build their base over 10,000 blocks away from everyone else. They're on the server, but they're basically playing a solo series, and that's how Pirates SMP felt at times. So, is Pirates SMP a good SMP? Yes, I would say it's good, but not great. Because even though it lacks player interaction, when it did happen and it wasn't for story or lore, it was some of the funniest and greatest moments on that server. And it still does a lot of things right that make it an entertaining and enjoyable narrative series. But it definitely could have been a better SMP. Don't get me wrong, I fully support Pow Creations and what they're doing. I fully believe Pow Creations will revolutionize and set the standard for Minecraft SMPs. This is only their second SMP. There will be things that they can improve on. But for how much they have already improved, it's amazing. And if Pow Creations can see constructive feedback like this, that allows them those improvements and gives them ideas to be even better, then we should share our feedback to them. So Pow Creations, if you're watching this, you two are doing an incredible job. And I hope feedback like this allows you to be even better.